And welcome back to Daily Justice. I'm Dave Erickson. Our topic today is gifts and divorce. Who keeps what in Washington State? My guest is Mark Hodgson, Spokane law attorney here in Spokane. Mark, how does Washington law typically determine who keeps gifts received during a marriage?
That's a pretty easy one, to be perfectly honest. It can get complex, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute. But like the first one is, if you were to give me a gift, it's mine. It's simply, that's no takesy backsies. That's a legal term. Throw it around, impress your friends. But yes, generally a gift. So the big one that we hear about all the time, the wedding ring.
Yeah.
Okay. If let's say you give your wife or your wife to be that $20,000, Tiffany beautiful bridal set, and you get married and you go out and it turns out that your wife was not a person for you. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. I have excellent news about this for you. She gets to keep the ring. I'd say almost 999 times out of 1,000, she will be keeping that ring, and it will be given to her at absolutely no value because it's a gift. And oftentimes I can give people the advice that if you wish to argue over the wedding ring, we can do it one of two ways. One, we can go ahead and leave the wedding ring out of it, and we'd never mention this again, or you can find a new attorney.
Is that big of a deal, huh?
Well, yeah, to some people, and I understand why, because a lot of times it involves an heirloom.
Yeah.
Like if it's your grandma's gift, it's your grandma's, beautiful, the father from World War II gave it to your grandma. I can understand that, but please be careful giving away family heirlooms and make sure that she's the one, because there's almost no way of getting that back. As far as that's concerned. Now, there are other types of gifts that come into play in a marriage that can be far more complex.
So, how do you define gifts?
Essentially, I give this to you.
Without a receipt, it's like, here it is.
Families do it all the
Open
time.
it up at Christmas, or I give it to you in a different way. It's yours.
Yeah, think about it like, you have children, right? So you give them a gift, right? You don't say, well, that's mine until you turn 18.
Yeah.
That's their toy, their clothes, their everything. And your wife too. If you give her something at Christmas, that's hers. And that's exactly how it goes, whether there's a bow on it. Now, sometimes houses are gifted, and that's where it gets interesting.
Houses or cars, big motor vehicles.
Well, title can come into play too, right?
Your name's on it, her name isn't on it, but you said, here's your new car, Merry Christmas.
Well, here's your new car, that's a gift, right? But if my parents buy me a house and we all live in it, and then my wife pays part of the mortgage for 20 years, does that mean it's my house because my parents gave it to me, and to heck with her? That's where it gets dicey. Wedding rings, pretty simple. You gave it to her, it's hers. What about the car? Well, did you put the little Lexus bow on it and throw it in the front yard and go, here you go, honey? Good news, it's hers. However, there's always a question, did she also accept the debt on that vehicle? Because that comes into play. And so do you gift the debt with the car? That more comes into a little more softer thing, but I do think the car is hers. But like I'd say one of the most difficult issues is when couples are gifted things such as real estate.
So how does a court recognize whether something is legally a gift or legally a community property? How do they see that?
Well, there's some good dividing lines. So like community property is pretty easy because it was built on the efforts of the community, correct?
Right.
So, if the husband and wife both have jobs and for simplicity's sake, we're going to do $100 a month, they each make 50, and they contribute $25 a month each towards their house. That's a community asset, no question about it. They both took community funds, your wages, and they put them into a community asset. That's community, okay? Now, there's other ways to go where maybe the husband and the wife go in on a house and then the mother-in-law also goes in on a third, right? So then the court will choose to equitably split. We've talked about this in a previous one, but it'll fairly split the portion that's theirs, which is 2/3, and then the other party will take what they have. That creates a ton of problems, but that's not really a gift so much, even though they lived there. So really the issue would be like when someone says, I gift Dave Erickson this $1 million home to live in, and your name's on the title. There's a statement in writing, saying this is to Dave and not to the community, those types of things. If you can go ahead and clarify that as to who you're giving it to and why you're giving it to them, that's helpful. But oftentimes they'll say, here's your house, and both people are living there. Who is the gift to?
Well, let's talk about documentation then. Verbal versus written.
Yeah, but between families, they do all sorts of things. And,
Yeah.
and I can guarantee you when you break up, the other person's not going to say, I thought that it was only his. That just doesn't happen. So gifts can be very complex and difficult. They can sometimes be very simple. In the case of a wedding ring, very simple. In the case of a house, boy, it gets complicated. And
Well, let's say that, the father-in-law says, hey, son-in-law, I'm going to gift you this pontoon boat. Or, hey, it's yours when I'm done with it. He's done with it. It's just a verbal. So
Well-
how is it, he passes away, sadly, whose boat is it now?
That's hard to say. It also depends on the will. So the title oftentimes is helpful. So like if he says, here it is, and he puts the pontoon boat solely in your name,
That's
that's
easy
something.
to understand, but if it's a verbal, then
If it's verbal and nobody changes the title, it can be incredibly difficult. And oftentimes a pontoon boat that's really nice might not be worth arguing about. So, I mean, it really depends. But it's a good subject because what's a gift and what isn't a gift? It really does. In family law, it comes down to it. I don't know if you remember it in grade school, but it was always like, hey, he took my pencil. He gave it to me. That happens all the time, with 6-year-olds. Just imagine if it's $1 million house.
right.
I'll give you 1 million reasons why people argue over that.
Gifts and divorce. That's an interesting topic. Mark, thanks very much. For more expert legal insights and to get trusted help with your situation, whether it's this or others, visit HodsonLawOffices.com or call the number on your screen to schedule your free consultation today. There's also a direct link below this video.